Now, this video is going to be a little bit different than my traditional top 10 video I do every single quarter, looking at all the best Zetas in the game, no matter how accessible the character is. This video is more towards people approaching level 80 and trying to figure out what is the best first Zeta to get into, or people who have done Zetas for a long time may not have considered some of these characters. So we're going to exclude very hard to access things such as Jedi Knight Revan. Not going to Mandela is obviously a very good Zeta, but Zetas that are accessible by the time you hit level 80, and Zetas that are going to amplify the roster you've invested in up until this point. So without further ado, let's get into it, because I have some interesting ones on the list depending on how your roster looks like. But to be honest, I just kind of want to start off at the top. I don't want to go in any particular order, but I think the best Zeta to look into if you don't have characters such as Traya, Jedi Knight Revan, and all those other big name characters, I really think Emperor Palpatine and his leadership ability, Emperor of the Galactic Empire, is probably one of the best overall accessible Zetas you can invest in. Now, of course, Jedi Knight Revan and Darth Traya is stealing the show, but Palpatine, even at the top, and he is still a very competitive character, but for people who are playing in the mid-game, Palpatine, my goodness, this Zeta is crazy, because the cool thing is you've already built an Empire roster because you needed to get R2-D2, and if you follow my guide that I made on how to go about the best way to get legendary characters, Palpatine should be a very quickly accessible character. So long as you get the Phoenix, you should get Emperor Palpatine way before you get to level 80, and he just supercharges both the Empire and the Sith. And in the mid game, he is a very deadly force, and it gives you a lot of flexibility to make a very powerful mid game team. And Palpatine is even great towards the end game when you think about territory wars, territory battles, as well as arena. Those are the areas where Emperor Palpatine shines, and I can't think of a better first Zeta to really look into except Emperor Palpatine, except I will bring up someone that comes close to making a faction supercharge, and that has to be Bastila, the light side version of Bastila. Now, I know I said I wanted to talk about pretty accessible characters, but the cool thing about Bastila is, first of all, if you've been playing the game for a couple months, you would have gotten this character for free through a marquee event, and I've made a video on whether Bastila's great at 3-4 stars, whatever the case may be, and she's amazing at a low star count and supercharges the Jedi faction through her leadership ability, Initiative. This just adds a ton of viability for Jedi, and she's a great placeholder until you can finally get Jedi Knight Revan, which is definitely more out there for a lot of people. It's still taking me a while to finally build up the Revan. Now, again, kind of following that video where I kind of take you along the most efficient path to get legendary characters, we talk about Jedi, and a Jedi team is very easily farmable. There's so many Jedi in this game, and you need Jedi to get Grand Master Yoda, so you probably might already have a decent Jedi faction sitting on the side, and if you want to make use of the Jedi, you can through Bastila. So she is an amazing character, even at a low star count, and you are going to need her for Jedi Knight Revan. So even if you don't have her at 7 stars now, she is definitely worth the grind, and she is really important either as the leader, and when you stop using her as the leader and you get Jedi Knight Revan, she's great in the background helping him out. If you guys are kind of noticing, I'm recommending Zetas that amplify a faction. Palpatine amplifies the Empire and Sith, Bastila amplifies the Jedi, and you may have went towards a direction of First Order. I'm trying to give you guys a variety depending on how you take your rosters, because my first rule in Galaxy of Heroes is have fun and farm things you love, and a lot of people love the First Order, and Kylo Ren has my favorite node in Galaxy of Heroes. Best farming location in the game because you get the character shard and you get the ship blueprint right here. But mainly, this isn't a farming guide. This is a Zeta guide for people looking for their first Zeta. So if you went down the path of First Order, which is needed for getting BB-8, which leads to Jedi Training Race, so an important component of this game, look into Merciless Pursuit. Again, just like the previous characters amplify those factions, I think Kylo Ren en masse is a good high Zeta to look into, because just even thinking beyond Arena, which he does provide a good benefit for the mid-game in Arena, not so much end-game. He can beat things, but it's not that amazing. He's great for Territory Wars. He's always used in Territory Wars, and Territory Battles, another easy team. All these bonuses that he gives the First Order makes them very survivable, makes them tanky, and he helps them put out some pretty good damage, and they get a lot of extra speed. Highly recommend Kylo Ren Unmasked. It's a character, he might not be the prettiest face in the game, you might not hear too many buzzwords about him, but again, if you're looking for a first Zeta, look at your roster and say, what character is going to amplify what I have? And if you have First Order guys and you're in your level 80 looking for a first Zeta, Kylo Ren Unmasked will bring that First Order to a level you have not seen them before. The next character we're going to talk about definitely could be argued to be in those first 3 that I mentioned, and that is Han Solo. Now, the Rancor raid is the easiest raid in the game, and probably because of how good the characters are nowadays, you probably at least have Han Solo unlocked at this point. And you may have noticed he's a pretty good character. He's even used at the end game when Commander Luke Skywalker and Chewbacca are behind him. But really, the Shoots First Zeta is one that has stood the test of time and is great for pretty much every single game mode out there. And it just basically allows him to hit for a second time and do great damage. Although there's that 50% reduction in damage, kind of ignore that, because if you mod him correctly with critical damage and whatnot, the subsequent hit, depending on who's leading and whatnot, it does amazingly well. And especially under Commander Luke Skywalker, which we'll talk about in a little bit, when he counterattacks, it is a pain you don't want to deal with, especially when Chewbacca's with him and whatnot. Very good Zeta right here. So if you have Rebels, which are needed to kind of get Commander Luke Skywalker and Emperor Palpatine and whatnot, Han Solo will play a very good role with that Zeta Shoots First. So since we're kind of on the topic of Rebels, there's only 2 Rebels I put on this list today as good for Zeta investments. Let's take a look at Commander Luke Skywalker. Now, Commander Luke Skywalker is starting to push that boundary, I think, of what is accessible for level 80. All the characters needed for Commander Luke Skywalker are super accessible, super free to play. So getting Commander Luke Skywalker, if that's your goal, if you love Rebels and you love Commander Luke Skywalker, getting him isn't all that difficult due to how the characters are accessible. And he, kind of like Palpatine, Bastila, and Kylo Ren Unmasked, he is the reason Rebels can remain relevant in various game modes. And if you're looking for a Zeta, and if you have Commander Luke Skywalker, if you've noticed, I didn't even Zeta the leadership or the first unique ability, but I did Zeta. It binds all things, and this is mainly important because he's going to help himself and others regain protection and gain bonus turn meter, and there's a lot of debuffs that fly around on the field, so a lot of protection and turn meter going around. So this right here, it's kind of like a mini leadership ability, in my opinion, because he shares these effects with other people in the game. So again, not saying you have to Zeta every single one of these characters, but look at your roster. If you're building a pretty good Rebel roster, you love Rebels for territory battles, territory wars, or Rebels in general, Commander Luke Skywalker, and at least it binds all things, are a great first Zeta, and this is one of the most invested Zetas in the game overall too. Now obviously Jedi Training Rey is the best resistance leader in the game, but I'm not going to talk about Jedi Training Rey because I think she starts pushing into that end game content, because the characters you need to farm are definitely characters high up there that take a very long time to farm for veteran Han Solo as well as veteran Chewbacca. But in the meantime, while you're building up your resistance roster to take on the Jedi Training Rey event, Finn Zeta, although it's a bit outdated and not perfect for everything, he is still a great counter for many things on the offensive. On defense, he's horrible, but on offense, because of balanced tactics and all this exposed synergy going on and all the turn meter they're getting, all the cooldown resets, against a lot of things in territory wars on the offensive, against Darth Traya, for example. He can beat Darth Traya if you do the trick right. He's great for the AAT raid as well as territory battles. A lot of use out of this character, and it's so cool because if you mod the characters right and all that, the other team, they might never take a turn. So really cool, and you can build a very powerful offensive Finn Zeta team with Poe, Resistance Trooper, very accessible character. So it's kind of cool to see that a character like him is viable. Not the best Zeta in the game anymore, I think, but for a first Zeta, I think it's still something worth talking about. If you love Night Sisters, which they are a good faction, you might want to look into a good Zeta leadership ability. If you don't have Mother Talzin for the constant revives for Night Sisters, this is very good for Night Sisters. Look at all these extra bonuses they're getting. All this turn meter, all this turn meter reduction. Asajj Ventress allows you to take on the Rancor raid if that's a big concern for you. Great for the Sith raid and great for the Tank raid. There's just a lot of use out of Asajj Ventress, and just kind of a bonus if you already have Mother Talzin Zeta on the leadership. Asajj Ventress, Rampage. This is the reason why she puts out huge damage in every single type of raid, because her damage just piles and piles up. So Asajj Ventress, a very good free-to-play character, and I'm hoping she gets better in the future. Maybe if they do a Separatist rework, this character might get even better. So this is the character to kind of put on your radar because she's good now, and I think she has potential in the future. Moving on to the last 3 here. Again, I'm not ranking these the last 7 characters really in any particular order, but my goodness, Grandmaster Yoda. He's a very easily accessible Jedi character you can get. It's very easy to put a couple Jedi together and unlock Grandmaster Yoda. And with his recent rework this past July, he has definitely become such an improved character. And if you have a Jedi team, whether it's Bastila, like we talked about earlier, or a Jedi Knight Revan, he is the critical component to make sure Jedi stay relevant. You need a good leader, Bastila or Jedi Knight Revan, and then you need Yoda. Battle meditation is something I highly recommend looking into. If you know the rework of Yoda, he's bouncing all over the walls. He really fits the lore in Star Wars, where he is a super quick character. And with battle meditation, he's spreading buffs like wildfire already, but giving foresight to a Jedi team is so important. Then he gets a bunch of turn meter gain and all this other stuff. So he's a very quick character. He can constantly steal buffs, spread it around, but just getting the foresight helps you take on the incoming damage from the opposing team, because those Commander Luke Skywalker teams, when they counterattack, they hurt. But if you have foresight, you're evading left and right. So a kind of a powerful, unique ability that I think is really important for the current state of Jedi. So I really wanted to pick a bounty hunter to talk about, because I think bounty hunters are an important faction to talk about. They're needed for Chewbacca. Bossk is, in my opinion, the best overall bounty hunter in the game. Now, I know there's been a lot of talks because they recently kind of nerfed, or they fixed the bug, as they said, with their contract, but still, the Zeta on the hunt is great. This is the reason why that Sith or bounty hunters do great in the Sith raid. When you go in phase 2 with this Zeta, bounty hunters virtually never die because they're gaining so much health and protection with every debuff they're applying. So he kind of amplifies the bounty hunter faction. Now, every single bounty hunter has a leadership ability, but obviously there are some good ones and some bad ones, and Bossk, I think, is even better than Jango Fett more often than not. And yeah, he's not the most accessible character in the game. I do have to point that out. But if you did get him for free, whether 3 stars, 4 stars, or you've been farming him slowly ever since he did become free to play, I think this is a character you should really look into, because unlike how I got Chewbacca, if you have a Zeta on Bossk lead, getting Chewbacca is so much easier. But now I have to kind of talk about the last one on the list, and this might trigger some people, but droids. I know it's a weird word to say, but droids, some people absolutely love droids. They're a fun faction. You have some good droids out there. Imperial Probe Droid, BB-8, IG-88, R2-D2. The hope is one day General Grievous gets a rework, who knows? And the hope is this month HK-47 gets a rework, if you saw the talks I've been having regarding HK-47. But really, this Zeta, just mark my words, I think this Zeta is going to be important for the future. And that's going to be T3M4. You guys are probably already like, what the heck? He's fallen off his rocker, but listen to me, people. Combat logic upgrade. This is a decent Zeta today, because droids can be a lot of stuff on offense, but I think the Zeta is going to be really important for the future. I mean, look at this. The main thing to point out is that droids get 8% critical damage for each debuffed enemy, so up to 40% critical damage, and droids are known to be ultimate glass cannons with a ton of damage output. Look at IG-88 putting out huge damage on his basic, on his AoE ability. But the reason I want to point this out is the devs have been teasing that droids will get better in the future, whether that's because of an HK-47 rework, perhaps, maybe a General Grievous rework, perhaps, or maybe some other droids coming to the game sometime in the future to amplify the faction. But I think the Zeta is decent now. If you love droids and you want to make droids your thing, this Zeta is, in my opinion, mandatory for a workable droid team. And I think in the future, this Zeta will be important as well. This is kind of my wild card Zeta I'm tossing out for you people. So hopefully you guys kind of enjoy this last one, because not a lot of people talk about it. And it's not too invested in it, because it's not the craziest thing in the game right now, because droids aren't the main thing. But if you have a droid faction, you love the droid faction, my number one rule is to play what you love. And if you love droids, T3M4 is just going to take you over the edge, and you're going to love them even more. Oh, but that is going to be it for today, all you lovely ladies and gentlemen. Let me know down below. This is just my opinion, but there's a lot of opinions out there. What Zetas would you recommend for someone who is just hitting level 80 and trying to look into their first Zeta? Because that first Zeta sticks with you for a long time, and it's hard to get Zeta mats, so you want to pick wisely. So let me know down below. A lot of opinions out there. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, go ahead, leave me a like, comment down below, and subscribe so you're not missing a thing. And until the next video.
Party Richter, Party Richter. Down, 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 down. Party Richter, Party Richter. Son of a bitch. Party Richter, Party Richter. Down, down, down.